Hi, in this Unity tutorial, we're going to go over doing 2D skeletal animation. So this is an example of the end result of what we're going to do today. If I press play, you'll see that this drawing here is animated and moves. Okay, and you'll notice over here, these white lines, these are the skeletal bones that were added to this picture to control like how the character moves. Okay, so what we're going to do is go over how to do this in Unity. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project so you can see how we do this starting from scratch from a brand new Unity project. So from here, I'll just say new project and I'll give it a name, 2D Anim 2, because I just did the first one. And then for the template, I'm going to switch it to just two-dimensional instead of three-dimensional. And then I'll say create project. So Unity takes a moment when it does this to load up everything, get it all started. But this is the first step, creating a brand new 2D project. So we are all starting from the same place. Almost there. And here we go, brand new 2D project. Notice the 2D is on, the display is flat, there's no light, there's just a camera. All right, so we're gonna need our image. So I kind of have some transparent images I made. Here's the face, and here's a new one. Here's orange blobby. So I just dragged and I dropped him into the assets window. Here he is, and you can see by default, Unity makes it a sprite. Okay, so if I take him, I'll put him in the scene over here, and I could adjust the size if I wanted to. Come a little bigger. All right, and now let me click on the sprite asset in the asset window. And then over here for the inspector, there's a thing called sprite editor in the inspector window. I'm going to click that button. And now this is a special window for editing the sprite. In this window is where I'll add the bones. So up here in the corner, there's different sprite editing options. And right now there's no option to add any bones yet. So let me close this window. So Unity over here has my assets, and it also has something called packages. And by default, some packages are installed, but not the sprite animation package. So what we're going to have to do is install the sprite animation package for this project. I go to Window, Package Manager, and here it shows the ones that are in the project already. But I'm going to have to go to press the All button here so I can see all packages that are available to me. And here is the 2D animation package. So I'll click on that. And just so you know, right here is the install button. Let me press install. And it's installing. And when it finishes installing, it'll change right. Yeah, thought it was finished. Okay, now it's finished. And now instead of installing, I could say remove. But, we're not doing that. We wanted it to be in. So now here in the in project packages, we have our 2D animation package. Okay. So I could close the package manager window. And also down here in the packages, you can see you got the 2D animation package. All right, so now with the 2D animation packaging, we should be able to add bones. So I'm going to click on my sprite again in the asset window, and then I will click on the sprite editor button. And now over here at the top of the sprite editor window, I should be able to, there you go, I should be able to pick bone editor. All right, so what happened when I picked bone editor is right down here, you should see a little tool window, and these are the bones. So the first button I click here is the first tool button, says create bone. And I'll place my first bone. So I think with this model here, I'll place my first bone here at the hip, the waist, and there at the neck, and here where the mouth is, and then one up here where the eyes are. Okay, now this thing is still ready to add some more bones. So instead of left clicking like I did to make a chain of bones, I'll just right click. Okay, so now I have one line going through the middle of his body, and now I want to add some bones to go to the arms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the neck, and then I'm going to click this button over here, which is create a free bone. It's not really free, it just means it's not attached. So I click create free bone, and then this yellow line appears. So this one is going to start over here in a shoulder, and the bone's going to go out this way to what I'm going to make an elbow. Okay, then the free bone thing is still active, so I'm going to make the other one from this shoulder to this elbow. And now I'm going to right click to stop doing the free bone over here. Now the other free bones I'm going to do for the legs, so I'll click here to select this bone. This is where the free bones are going to attach to. Click the free bone button and I get the yellow line again. So I'm going to start this one here to a knee, and this other one's going to start here to a knee. And then I right click. All right, so I almost have everything. I just don't have the extents off of these free bones that I added. So now I'll select this free bone and I'll just add a bone to get up to the hand. Then right click. Then select this one and do another create bone to go up to this one's hand. And then right click. And then down here with these two, let me finish making the legs. First, let me pick one, then add a bone. If that was the knee, and then, oopsie, if I make a mistake, I could always like select the tip to make it longer, and then go into the foot. If I make a mistake, I could drag the bones around by the tip or by this base, to adjust the bones if I'm drawing them and they're not right. And on the other side, I'm going to pick that and right again, it's a chain bone I'm going to make here. Goes to the foot, and then the foot bone connected to the toe bone. All right, there you go. Now, maybe there's one other set of bones I want to make here on his mouth, so I could open and close his big mouth. So I'll pick this bone over here and then add two more free bones. So one will start here for the top of his mouth, and another one over here for the bottom of his mouth. So that way I can make his mouth open and close. And right click. So now I got all the bones. Now we just have to make sure we go over here in the top bar and press apply. Okay. So we've added the bones. Now we have to have weights for the bones. So I'm going to go to over here again and bone editor, added the bones. This option right here called skin weights and geometry editor, I'm going to click that one. And now I'll have a different bar up here that says geometry. And right now this is just a picture, so Unity doesn't know anything about where the edges are or anything, but it could automatically generate a mesh to outline it. So we're going to just up the outline detail here, up the alpha tolerance, and then up the subdivisions, okay, a little bit, and say generate. And you'll see what happens is this mesh kind of appears over our image. So the subdivision one's going to control how many of these little control points within the mesh. The outline detail are all these details around the outline of the shape. Let's say here inside the body, I want a little bit more dots, so that's the subdivision. So I could up it a little bit more and press generate, and you'll see that now there's more dots on the inside of the body. So that's what subdivision controls. All right, so now I have the geometry added. Let me press apply. And still here on this same menu, we have weights. So let me click the weights button. And the picture changes and the menu changes up here, as well as a new weight editor panel here. So what I could do, what this weights thing is going to do is say for the bone, for any of the bones, what vertice does it affect when the bone moves. So instead of me trying to draw it out and figure it out myself, I'm just going to press auto. And then you'll see the colors are filled in for where each of these bones are going to have an effect on something in the picture. Okay? And I can leave it at that for this tutorial. And I press apply. All right. So now in the sprite editor, I've done three things. I've added the bones, I've added the mesh, and I've added the weights. I'm done with the sprite editor. Make sure I press apply and then I close it. Now I go back to my Unity editor window, and in the hierarchy window, I'm going to click orange blobby, my game object, and I'm going to add a script. Okay, so over here, it looks like I started typing in some word, sprite skin script, and here it is from my assets. It's looking up the sprite skin script. I'm going to add that to my game object. And what happens is this little panel comes in where it automatically looked at the bones that I added, and it adds a little thing for each bone. And here the root bone would be the first bone that I added at the hip. Now all I have to do is press this button, create bones. And it's going to drag in all those bones I created in the sprite editor into the sprite skin script. And we're almost there. Now that we have the script added to our game object, the bones, the weights, and the geometry, I think we're ready to do some editing. So first off, let me just drag and drop this and save it as a prefab, so I don't have to do all that work over again if I make a mistake somewhere along the way here. So now I have the prefab with the bones. And next thing I want to do is I want to open up an animation window so I could record the keyframes of me animating those bones around. So I'm going to go to Window, Animation, Animation Window. And that opens up an animation window. And since I had opened up mine before, I already had it docked. But in case yours isn't, and it opens up just in the middle like this somewhere, when you press to open the animation window, you could just dock it yourself. And I'm docking it here at the bottom. It fits nicely. So it says no animatable object selected. And if you look up here, unselected when I open the window. So I'm going to select orange blobby again. And now I selected orange blobby, and it says to press this button to start creating an animation clip. So I'm going to press the button, create, and then Unity is going to ask me for a name. So since this is an animation for orange blobby, I'll just call this orange blobby. Blobby, 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 whatever, orange blob, B, there. And that's going to be the name for the animation I'm going to make. You can make more than one animation. So for this first animation, I'm going to call it orange blobby. Now I press the record button in the animation keyframe window, and now whatever I do, it's gonna record the step. So here at step 0 will be this position. So I'll leave it that way. Then here at step at 0.05 seconds, I'm just gonna do a little change. I'll make his hand go up, and then I'll make his hand go down, as if to say hello. Then he waved his hand, and then we move his mouth. Um, yeah, that's what's gonna happen. His mouth will be closed, and then his mouth will be open, like he's talking. And at another keyframe, let's see if I can make his legs bend here. Let me zoom in a little so I can see these tiny little bones. There, he kicks up his foot. Um, and maybe he just brings up his knee. Okay. And over here, kicks up his foot. And he here as well is just bringing up his knee, I'll say. And then say, when he does that, kicking up his foot and bringing up his knee, I'll have him just bring down this arm. And bring down this other arm. And I don't know, tilt his head down there. And so the animation can play on a loop. All these little keyframes here, this is position 1. As you see, I could take my mouse in this red bar here and move it back and forth and see what I got going on. I think he should close his mouth. Now, other than rotating the bones, I could also move the bones. See, so I could rotate it like this and close his mouth nicer, like that. Okay. Oh, I think I'm gonna also make him dance back and forth. So let me go back over here somewhere. And he leans back. And then over here, he leans forward. So I have a whole bunch of different movements that I've done. And to make the animation loop nicely, I'm always going to want to take the first set of cells and do a Control C, and then put that on the end here somewhere, give them a chance to flex back to normal, Control V. Okay, and let me see if I scrub along here. That looks nice. Or I could just press play to see him move around. Okay, so I think that's nice. Let me turn off the record. So with that animation made, what did that do? We're going to look back to the project window. It made these two new icons over here. So this is the actual animation that I named Orange Blobby. And then Unity also made this animation controller for me. So let's see, we have the Orange Blobby game object. We have the sprite skin, the sprite renderer, those were there. We have the animator, and inside the animator, it added the Orange Blobby controller right here for us. This is the controller. So the animation is basically this icon. The animation is basically these steps that are recorded at different times. And the animation controller, if I double click on it, is basically a window like this, which once again, if it's the first time you're opening it, it probably is detached and, a window that's on its own. And the first animation that's added into the animation controller, which Unity already did that for us. It kind of put the orange blobby animation in the controller. The first animation is always orange, and there's a line that goes to that, so that this character is going to play the orange animation by default. But again, I could dock these windows. Um, let's move it down, so I could see this and dock it over here. There you go. orange blobby. Has everything, and I don't have to click the apply button, so he's saved right there. Now if I press play, it should play by default that one animation that I added. And there you go, it's playing. Now say the animation's playing too fast, or I want to change the speed. I selected this one keyframe. I could select the whole thing, and also say the whole thing got too long. I could just use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. Okay, so that I could select the whole thing, and then it has these two blue lines at the ends. I could move the line to say I want it to stretch out. Let me zoom out, and 1, 2 seconds is what I'm going to do. Okay, so now I change it to 2 seconds, and I could press play to see it, or I could just press play over here to see it. They're a little bit slower. Okay, or I could press play since that's the only animation I have added. There you go. Well, there you go. That's the basics of the 2D animation. Um, what else could I show you? Everything I mentioned, you could see it in the documentation for the package. So if I go back to the package manager and I had the 2D animation, you see there's a little link here for documentation. You click it and basically it'll open up the documentation in your browser window. So here's the bone editor that we did, and just talking about creating the chain bones with the first tool button, creating the free bones with the second. Then even if you have a chain of bones, you could detach one of them with this third button to move it apart, even though it's still parent-child hierarchy. Then over here on the fourth button, you could change who a bone's parent is. And on the this last button here, you could pick a bone and split it in half. So you can get two bones out of it. Then over here, it shows you the picture of like when you make the geometry. And then when you do the weights and you get those colors. So that's kind of cool. And they have like two example pictures here that they're doing animations for. All right, so that's another tutorial. Later.